Millions of people around the world not only share our lives with children and other human beings, but we share our lives with dogs, cats, gerbils, whatever it is you got. They're not human, and they become part of your family. The only problem is they don't have the lifespan of us humans, and most likely you will witness them pass away. So, this video, I am going to talk about my experience with pet loss and how I cope with it, and kind of let you figure it out for yourself because there's really no definitive answer on dealing with pet loss. But maybe some of the things I tell you can help you with that. Now, a brief history about me, in case you're wondering, well, how does he know anything about pet loss? Well, I've had a lot of them. I've got a pet cemetery over there with 9 dogs, 1 kitten, 1 puppy, and a rooster. And every one of them were in my life at one point in time. And most of the dogs were mine. There are some that are my brothers, but I knew all these dogs. And each one of them has a different scenario of how they passed away and how I had to deal with it. Some are harder than others. And the one that was the easiest, well, that one might surprise you. So wait for the end, get to the end of the video, and I'll tell you about him. Now, I showed up here in 2012, and you have to excuse my dogs. The neighbor dog come over to play, and they all got to bark at him. Rooster and Lily. Dogs. And I showed up with nothing, man. I had a car that they were looking for, $22 in my pocket. I didn't know if I could get a job here. The offer was, I had 2 job offers, and a friend of mine who I went to grade school with and knew, for many, many years, her and her husband inherited a farm here, and he needed help. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to take a chance, see what happens. Okay, I show up here. The very next morning when I wake up, there's 2 beagles in the yard. And very friendly beagles. They were young, probably 10 months old, not quite a year. I'm pretty good at judging dogs' ages. I am now. And they just, everywhere I went, they were, for that day, they were right there at my ankles. And I just fell in love with these dogs. Lucy, Waldo's sister, she would just come jump in my lap, and then she'd wiggle around where she was facing up, belly up, and I'd hold her like this, and she would not get down until I put her down. And she did that all her life. And they were my first 2. And, I didn't have, there was a cafe in town, and that's where all the ranchers would meet for breakfast in the morning and have coffee. So we went in there that very next day in the morning, and he knew of somebody that needed help on a ranch. I had me a job. I started work Monday, and that began my life here. Well, before I stayed with him on that farm for probably a little over a year. I bought a travel trailer. I was looking for a place. I just ended up with this place, okay? And by the time I moved out here, I'd already had 4 dogs. Okay, they would just show up out there, abandoned. People would dump them, or however they would end up there, and I'd take care of them. And his wife was involved in dog rescue. I never knew anything about dog rescue. I never had a dog. Well, I had 2 dogs in the early 2000s when I lived in Kentucky. Had them for a few years, but the job, I had to move with the job, and I had left them with a friend. They lived out their lives. Other than that, I had no experience with dogs. We had a cat growing up. That was it. Just not a lot of pets. I get this place and I build a big fence yard. I said, I don't have anything. I don't have much. I don't have much money. I'm working, low paying jobs, but I'm getting by because it's cheap here. Well, I build a yard here. I build the dog houses. They always make sure they had good shelter. And I'm out there in the 5th wheel in this house. I'm renovating it, so it's going to take me a few years. So I have 4 dogs in the yard, plenty of room for more, right? So one day I was working at, I hurt myself at the ranch and I had to go to work for a pawn shop, listing things on eBay and things like that. It's something I knew how to do. And one day somebody brought in a whole cage full of dogs because we were helping out with dog rescue and stuff at the time. They knew would know what to do with them. And there were 14 puppies, and then Lily was the only one that was tan. So I decided, well, I'm gonna bring a puppy home. Brought her home. There's dog number 5. Over the next, I believe, year and a half, I went on to get Libby. I saw an ad on Facebook. They were going to put her down the next morning if somebody didn't adopt her. You see those a lot. I drove a couple hours and met the person that had Libby from the shelter that she was at, and I took Libby home. Libby was not an easy dog. We'll get into that in a minute. And then there was a brief time where I'd left the pawn shop and decided I was just going to do full-time dog rescue. And I worked a deal out with the mayor of the town nearest to me. And I took the dog shelter over, me and my friend. She has a 301c. I think that's what you call them. Yeah, nonprofit. And so I would go in there every day. They would pay me $1,000 for the first 3 months, and that was it. And then after that was over, I didn't have any income. And that was a rough period, but I seen so many cruel things that humans do to animals in that shelter. You just start hating people, and it's not a good environment. The puppies, the abuse, it's just crazy. And I seen, parvo is rampant in those places, and you can't hardly get rid of that stuff. It's, puppies come in with it. They look fine for a while. They get a certain age and they get sick, and there's not much you can do. Some of them make it, some of them don't. It's a lot of work. So anyway, later on, Rooster comes in, my little dog, and she just right away looked, I walked in, she had come in overnight, and I opened the door, and there she was, just happy-go-lucky, and I'm like, this dog don't belong here. So I ended up taking Rooster home. I was looking for me a little lap dog to have in the house. I brought a few home to try out, and they just, for some reason, didn't feel right. And Rooster was the one, and I still have her. You probably heard her barking out there. She's a character. And everything was all hunky-dory. Soon after I got Rooster, well, it was about a year. Okay, Rooster got to know all the dogs I had. One day I woke up. This was in 2017, and I look out, and I always give my dogs a milk bone first thing in the morning. It's just something I do. I can check on to make sure they're all okay, because if you open that door and yell milk bone, they all come running. They like a milk bone. I ain't met a dog don't like a milk bone yet. You drink coffee. YouTube did not like my coffee cup yesterday. Nope. That's why you don't see that video. Not even going to get into it. They didn't like it. So we got to be careful with the coffee cups. I wake up one morning to pass out the milk bones. Lucy is always the first one to greet me. No Lucy. There she was, laying in the middle of the yard, not moving. And I knew right away something was not right. And she was gone. No explanation. I looked out the window of my bathroom about midnight, and I seen her and Lily running around the fence and playing. Nothing wrong with her. And there she was. She was gone. Had no idea what happened. I took her to the vet. Vet said most likely her stomach twisted, but there were mushrooms in the area in the yard, and I didn't think much about it. I half think maybe she ate a piece of the mushroom. That was pretty devastating because I try not to pick favorites, but if I would have been forced to pick a favorite, it would have been Lucy, and she was gone. And man, I did not know what to do. And what can you do? You just have to deal with it. And so It took me three. I got to admit, I went way overboard with Barry and Lucy. I built this great big cedar casket out of cedar, and it was beautiful. I'm not even going to show a picture. I don't do that anymore. I put her in there, and took all the collars off her brothers and sisters, and I put their collars in with Lucy, her favorite sock, milk bones, nonsense. Okay, that's how much I love that dog. I thought I was, It took me 3 days. My back was terrible. I was overweight. It took me 3 days to dig her grave. Yeah, I did. I went down 5, 6 feet, and it about killed me because it was August 31st. We won't get in. It took me 3 days. So in the meantime, we at the shelter we had a freezer where we would have to keep them till we could find a way to dispose of the dogs that had passed away. So after I got her buried, I said, I ain't never doing that again. And I don't. All they get now is they get wrapped in a blanket or something and laid into the ground naturally. I mean, that was my first real experience with dog loss. And it hurt bad. It did. And then you notice the others. They notice that one of them is gone. And although you don't see them crying, you know that they feel it. And this is even more evident later on. And the next one to go was Lulu. She was a beagle. I believe she got to be 10 years old. I found her in a campground that my boss had owned at the ranch. And she was terrified of people. And I finally lured her close to me with an old McDonald's cheeseburger. And I got her and I brought her home. And she was a strange girl. But I grew attached to her like I did with all the others. And, she started developing kidney issues. And it went on a little further than before I could notice this. And then she ended up, I had to put her down. She was just suffering too much, which sometimes when they do that at the vet and they put your dog down, it goes well. And sometimes it does not. And it did not go well with her. They give them a shot that basically it knocks them out, puts them to sleep, and then they inject the stuff that puts them down. And she went into convulsions over that. And it was horrible to watch, but I insist anytime. And I had to put a lot of dogs in the shelter down too. If we didn't have to, we wouldn't do it. But I've watched a lot of those. Some of them go well, some of them do not, you know. And it's a horrible thing to watch, and you never forget that part of it. But each one is different. Then Wally, pretty much the same thing happened to Wally. He was the same breed as Millie, a Walker Hound. Uh, he just got old, you know. These breeds don't live to be these Walker Hounds. You're lucky to get 8, 9, 10 years out of them. And Wally was way past that. Uh, he was just terrified of storms. Storms and these jet planes that fly over, it would just put him into a frenzy. I've tried everything. I tried the CDB oil, everything. Nothing worked with him. And I came home from the ranch. I worked. And he had been digging so bad and trying to get out that he had cut himself so bad he lost a lot of blood. Well, took him to the doctor. He did it again like 2 days later, and he lost so much blood he just got sick and could never recover. They don't do blood transfusions for dogs, not in my local area. They have a synthetic blood they can give them, but not around here. Okay, so there was nothing that could happen to him. So that was he pretty much did it himself. But it hurt. Okay. It was sad to watch him go, but in the end I had to have him put down as well. Each one of my dogs I bury them here on the land. Now there are certain cases that are even harder. And the one I've dealt with that was the hardest was Libby. Libby was the dog that they were going to put down, and I drove to pick up. I had her for 9 years. She was very unpredictable. I don't know what the situation was with her before I got her. She was about 2 years old when I got her, but you did not go near her area or her bowl. She would attack you, and it would not stop until you got out of there or got away from her. And I dealt with her for years. I knew not what to do. I knew what kind of mood she'd be in, and I know not to mess with her. And that's not something you want to deal with a pet. But these animals that I've got were all rescues, had various different backgrounds, and I just dealt with it. And then one day I went in to let her out. She had a kennel. She could not be around other dogs. She was very, very aggressive towards other dogs. So she had to be kept in the kennel at night. I would get her out. I had 100, big lead I'd put her on, and she had a lot of room. She was happy. Well, for some reason, one morning I went in there to get her out, and she attacked me. And I mean, would not stop. Backed me into a corner. I had bite marks all over me. And I said, I don't have a choice here. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm not going to risk my life. Dogs get mental issues like people do. And I think she always had that. And it just got progressively worse. Perfectly healthy. And I had to take her to the vet. A perfectly healthy dog. Beautiful dog. And when you bring her in there, she's fine. She didn't remember the morning. A few hours later, she was back to her old self, but I couldn't have that anymore. She was getting more and more unpredictable. She actually bit somebody that came here that tried to pet her. And I always warn people, don't go near her. Excuse the dogs barking. There is chaos going on. Okay, I got more breaks in this video than ever. It wasn't my dogs. What was I talking about? That one bothered me. That I had to put her down. It did go easy. She went right to sleep. She just thought she was going to the vet because she'd have ear problems all the time, and I'd take her every couple times a year. But it was hard for me to deal with, and it still is. I still think about that. I still feel bad, and I know there was no other choice. No other choice. I couldn't put her with somebody else. I couldn't continue to have her because every time I'd go around her, I'm taking a risk. I don't move as fast as I used to. And there's videos on that happened while I have my channel, and everybody knew about Libby. There's videos with her in it. And I had to make a video explaining what happened, and most people agreed with what I did. I mean, what else could I do? So that one, when I think about it, it bothers me, and it always will bother me. But I know I did the best I could for 9 years with her, give her the best life, a life she wouldn't have had, because she was scheduled to be put down. She would not have had those 9 years. And they're all buried over there. And then Waldo. Waldo was the first one with Lucy. That was his sister. I had him 13 years from the very beginning, the very first day I got here. And last October 9th, a few weeks before that, he started not feeling well. So I took him to the vet, and they said he had a case of bronchitis that dogs get, I guess, and that he would, give me medication and he should be okay. Well, he didn't really seem to get any better. And then one day he's just all of a sudden, I mean, you wouldn't hear him bark anymore or anything. And this went on about a week. And then he come in one night barking and jumping and all happy. And I'm like, man, you're back, buddy. You're back. The medications worked. You're feeling better. That next morning, he was right back. He regressed right back to as bad as he was, even worse. Could barely walk. He would go outside and lay in the dirt. Then he would come back in and lay on the carpet. And by 2 o'clock that afternoon, I knew it was his time. There was nothing that could be done. And he died, right next to me. I sat next to him when he took his last breath. That was the easiest one because I knew he lived a good 13 years, and Man, I love that dog like you would not believe. He is in so many of my videos. Uh, and I miss him. And that was Lily's best friend. She's out there listening right there. And it hit her hard. She didn't know what to do. She's never been alone. She's scared of everything. And she's doing good now. We dealt with it. He's buried over there. So how do you deal with it? You just don't. All I can say is time heals all wounds. You're always going to miss them. You know, people think, oh, they're just a dog or just a cat. But what you don't understand is this. You have children, okay? For the first 4 years, they're pooping and peeing their pants. Okay, once they're done with that, you don't really have to do the level of care you used to have. You got to feed them. By 18, they should be gone, right? But after the age of 4, they're going to school half the day. So you're not spending 24/7 with your kids. Your dogs, your cats, you are. Unless you're, well, exception of you being at work. But you're spending, like me, I'm spending my whole days with these animals. So they are like my family. So yeah, it hits you when you lose them. Sometimes harder. I mean, I've lost friends and family that didn't hurt as much as some of the dogs that I've lost. I can't explain how that is. It just is. But there is no sure way to deal with it. You just got to let time pass and try to think of the good things, the happy times. If you got pictures, I don't find myself pulling up the pictures or the videos much. I've got hundreds of videos with Waldo in it. But I've got all that up here, and I really don't need to see that. I mean, I don't go back and watch my own videos anyway. But dealing with a pet loss, it's just going to be difficult. But should you not get a pet because of that? No. They're put in our lives for a reason. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Waldo and Lucy showing up, because I would have probably had no sense of responsibility. They gave me a sense of responsibility that I felt I owed them. And I built my life around them and the other dogs that I got. And it's made me nothing but a better person. Now I own a house free and clear because of that. And you may think that sounds ridiculous, that I got everything because of a dog, but it's true. I wouldn't have stayed if I hadn't had the responsibility of those two dogs, because I didn't want to let them down. Just to see it in their face, how they react around you, and you know that if you let them down after they've already been abandoned and let down, I wasn't going to let them go through that again. And then here I am. Has it hurt me? Not at all. Yes, it hurts losing them. But now I'm at the age where I have 4 left. And I don't plan to get any more, because I worry if something happens to me, I don't want them being here by themselves. Okay. I worry about that. So I've got one dog. Lily is 11. Rooster is almost 11. Millie is about 7. And Tilly's the youngest. She's going on 4. She's a beagle. Millie's a walker. They don't have long lifespans. Uh, Rooster, she'll probably outlive them all. But you just never know. When it's their time, it's their time. You have to deal with it. I think Rooster is probably going to be the hardest I've ever dealt with when the time comes. I think that's because she's in the house with me, and she's just the little baby, you know. She's the little baby of the bunch, even though she can be trouble. I ain't kidding you. That dog, they can all be trouble. Except Lily. Lily really never does anything wrong. I don't get it. Well, I hope this video helps, but that's the answer. There is no sure way to deal with it, folks. Happy trails.